Thanks very much and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Computer History Museum. I'm delighted to see you all here tonight. My name is John Holler. I'm the CEO. And on behalf of our board and our staff and our members and all of our volunteers, a lot of whom are here tonight, welcome to another night of revolutionaries. Alejandro Agag is an accomplished entrepreneur and a sports executive. Yet even Alejandro was in for some serious questioning when he announced in 2012 that the next step in his very successful career would be the launch of a Formula One style racing circuit for all electric cars. The cars didn't exist. The circuit didn't exist. It was very much an open question whether the powerhouses of Formula One racing, teams like Renault, for example, would play, and a new generation of drivers would be needed. But for Alejandro, who had a decade's worth of motorsports experience under his belt, these were only challenges, not showstoppers. Formula E is now very much a reality. Races are scheduled throughout the world in the heart of major cities like Miami and Berlin. The cars are sleek, beautiful, and fast. The drivers are becoming stars alongside their Formula One counterparts. The major teams are in the game, and a whole new world of fan participation and sustainable racing is emerging. So how does such a thing happen in such a short period of time? What are the roots of his vision and his plan for the future? And what are the highlights of the major new sustainable technology that he has inspired? Because the innovation is very much happening. We'll now talk to the CEO of Formula E Holdings about those questions and much more. Please join me in welcoming Alejandro Agag. So glad to have you here tonight. So I read, you were quoted, following up on what I was just saying, that if people aren't calling you crazy every day, I'm not working hard enough. How did you come to start Formula E racing?
Well, John, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I feel really small in this chair, having seen all the really smart people that has been here before me. Well, yeah, the question of how we decided to start Formula E, how we came up with this idea, probably we really don't know. If we would have known at the time what it was to create Formula E, I don't know if I'm not sure if we would have done it, but nobody told us how difficult it was going to be, so we just went ahead and did it, and that was quite a lucky decision.
That's a very Silicon Valley way of thinking, you know, so it's appropriate you're talking about that here.
Well, actually, we were very lucky that nobody in Silicon Valley invented Formula E first, because all the great things are invented here. Maybe you're not so much into racing, so that was our lucky thing. It was really at a dinner in Paris that we came up with this idea. We were 3 people having dinner, and one was actually quite a senior politician at European level, and he kept talking about electric cars, electric cars, electric cars. And I had been in racing for a number of years, and I kind of felt that something was missing in racing, that first, the younger generation wasn't so attached to it anymore, and second, that the big corporations and sponsors were starting to get worried about the lack of sustainability of motorsport. And I really didn't know how to solve that equation until I thought it could be through electric racing. So it was as simple as that, and then basically we started from there.
It's really interesting to see a sport trying to keep up with the curve of public sentiment on things like sustainability. Is that another innovation, just that philosophy that you're now trying to talk about this at the same time sustainability is becoming such a worldwide question?
Well, yes. Well, this could have been created by 2 different types of people. This could have been created by, I don't know how to call them, green people. They're not green, but like green, like from the sustainability space, or from motorsport people. And it was created by motorsport people. It doesn't mean I'm not concerned by the problems we have. I'm really concerned. I think we do have a problem. I believe in climate change. Some people do believe in climate change, some people don't. Fair enough. But what you cannot not believe in is in city pollution. So if you go to Beijing, you cannot see the building next to you. So city pollution. So we do have a problem. And I have 4 kids, and I really worry about what's going to happen with my kids and the planet they're going to live in. But I have never been an activist of the environment or anything like that. I've been in motorsport, and I love motorsport, and I love doing it. But I think from a business point of view, it makes a lot of sense. And it would be beautiful if everybody would buy electric cars because everyone wants to save the world. But it's not going to happen. Everybody will buy electric cars when electric cars are just better and more practical and cheaper and go faster and longer and so on than combustion cars. And I think I think our approach is very much business-centered. We are doing Formula E because we think, hopefully, we can make a really good business out of it. And we think we can make a really good business out of it because we think we're doing something good for society. And we think that now corporations like to do things that are good for society.
That is a perfect segue into the first area that I wanted to talk to you about tonight. We're going to get to the car in a minute. We've got one of those cars downstairs. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, what an incredibly beautiful machine. But let's talk about the structure of the racing circuit and the business of it, because that does have to be a starting point from a practical standpoint. Probably not many people in this audience understand Formula One and how it's structured, or Formula E and how it's structured. So can you just take us through how you put together a racing circuit like this?
So basically, the owner of all the motorsport in the world is the International Motorsport Federation, the FIA.
So there is one worldwide federation?
There is one worldwide federation, which would be the equivalent of the International Olympic Committee for the Olympic Games or FIFA for the football. You can do things outside of the federation. I mean, you and I could start a football world championship. You're the US, I'm Spain, we play, you win, I lose, whatever. But it's not FIFA.
Somehow I don't think we win.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we win. We win. You come second.
We come second. We do.
Good. So
I like that structure already.
That's fine. But nobody would care because it's not the FIFA, you know. So to do something in motorsport, to do something official, you need to be under the umbrella of the FIA. So Formula One is the most famous FIA championship. It's been going on for a long, long time. It has an amazing heritage, you know, since Fangio to Senna to Schumacher to Prost and all these big names. And it's where really a lot of the technology development for the motor industry comes from. And this is really the key point. From fuel injection to carbon brakes to rear mirrors, everything comes from competition and from Formula One or IndyCar or NASCAR, etc. No? So this is why it makes a lot of sense to do this kind of motorsport. Anyway, you have FIA, you have Formula One, and then FIA decided to do a sustainable championship, a kind of like championship focused on new technology and green mobility. So as soon as they did that, we raised our hand. And we play the same role as Formula One management plays in the Formula One. They hold the rights for Formula One for 100 years, which is a pretty long contract. We didn't manage 100 years, but we managed 25 years. So we hold the rights of Formula E for the next 25 years. So we are, let's say, we've been awarded a license to promote exclusively all around the world a championship based on any source of energy that powers an electric motor. Batteries is one of them, but any other one, fuel cells, supercapacitors, any other new thing, it's ours the next 25 years. And then when you get that, you have to go all around the world and convince cities to let you race, convince teams to join you, convince drivers to race with you, convince televisions to broadcast you, convince sponsors and partners to give you some money. So,
by the way, I should say, because you're too modest to say it, Alejandro had a very distinguished career in motorsports before he came to this. So when he raised his hand, it wasn't as if FIA wasn't dealing with someone who's very knowledgeable. He was on the GP2 circuit in that whole feeder to Formula One. You'd been in television rights management. You'd taken QPR and the English Premiership from the Championship League and had it promoted to the Premiership. So you've had quite a career and real success. So you had real credibility when you started going to the teams themselves. And I want to talk about the teams as the next step, because you know, your analogy to football is great. You and I could do this, but there are teams, and it's a business for them, and they had to be attracted to this. So how did you do that?
Well, we were, and I was myself a team owner for a number of years. And actually, it's very important for a new championship, for any new business really, to attract good teams and good talent, to give them the possibility to make money. And we go again to, nobody's going to do anything like, out of the blue.
Because the financial pressures on these teams are quite real and they're continuous. They never stop.
Yeah, because every race they need to pay for everything. So they need to pay for the plane tickets for all the crew to go to the race. They need to pay they need to pay me for the spare parts. Every time they crash, I sell them. So that's good, they crash. So we sell them some new parts. So yeah, they spend a lot of money. But on the other hand, we did a model of franchise. So there are only 10. And it was really interesting. Nobody really wanted to come in the beginning. Nobody really wanted to come like at all in Formula E in the beginning. No, nobody believed. Actually, not because Cynthia Ray is here, but Qualcomm was really one of the first companies that believed in us and joined us. But it was very difficult to get teams to join. And the first one that really took that step was an American team, was Andretti. Michael Andretti was really brave, and in a moment where it was really uncertain if we would make it, even if we would exist, he took the step and said, "I'm joining Formula E because I think this makes motorsport relevant, and I want to make motorsport relevant. I want to participate in a relevant motorsport." And after Michael Andretti, it was just like a snowball effect, and we got demands from all over the world, from different teams. So we have 2 teams from the US. Jay Penske also joined us. So we have, I think, the 2 biggest names on the American motorsport. We have Virgin. We have Sir Richard Branson, who was actually at the last race in Miami on Saturday, and he was very vocal about them going into electric cars and so on. We have a French team owned by Alain Prost, 4 times Formula 1 world champion. That was great to have Alain Prost join the championship. We have an Indian team, Mahindra, which is a big Indian conglomerate. We have a Japanese team, Super Aguri, who used to be in Formula 1. Chinese team, Team China, which is the official team of the Chinese government. We have an Italian team, Trulli, which is a former F1 Monaco race winner. Audi, ABT from Germany. So yeah, so we managed to attract a pretty good kind of like and diverse and geographically diverse, which is what we want. We want this championship to be truly global set of teams. So yeah, quite happy about that.
Now you've put a bit of a unique structure into for them so that they are able to, you have a competitive structure for them that maybe doesn't exist in Formula One or other combustion engine racing. Can you talk a bit about how you've tailored the participation of these teams as businesses to make it incentive?
So what we want to create really is technology competition, because it's through technology competition how the big breakthroughs come. What really motivates people is to win, to beat the other one. It is. I mean, it would be nice if it wasn't, but it is. So everybody wants to win. I mean, these teams, they are like really totally focused on winning and beating everyone else. So you need to allow for that. But the risk of that is if you open the door completely to all the technology development, they start spending money. And an engineer, I'm sure many of you are engineers, will spend every single money he can spend. So if he has $1 more to spend, he will spend that dollar and an extra dollar.
Well, there are a lot of people here saying, so what's wrong with that?
Nothing. Well, because in Silicon Money, there's a lot of dollars. But so you need to focus and limit the development so everything stays on a reasonable level, but still you need to allow for technology competition. So the way we manage that, which is I think one of the biggest stresses in Formula One now, is some teams are spending $200, $300 million a year. Other teams are really struggling, and it's a difficult business model. So the way we structure that is that we allow teams to do their own powertrain, only the electric part of the powertrain. So that car that you see outside, the outside of the car is going to be the same for all the teams, but inside is going to be different. So they have freedom to do their own batteries, and they have freedom to do their own inverter and their own electric motor and their own electronic control unit, etc. from next year. But teams can choose not to do their own kit and to buy from someone else at the maximum cap price. And so far we have 10 teams. 8 have decided to do their own kit. 2 have decided not to, and they will see a little bit, and whoever is the best, they will raise their hand and buy their kit, which puts them in quite a comfortable position. This is what I would like, what I would have liked to have if I would have had it was pretty complicated, but I say it right, Formula One team. Yeah. I was in GP2, which was a feeder of Formula One, And if that rule would have been in place, I would have been able to buy a Ferrari car or a Red Bull or a Mercedes, and then I would have been competitive. But if you have to do your own and you don't have money, then it's impossible. No? So we set up this system, and that has been quite well received by the competitors.
And I asked you earlier, a lot of times when you see technology being innovated like that, there's a lot of sharing going on. Is there any sharing going on between any of these teams?
Zero sharing. Like, and I mean, I'm not going to say they cheat, but you know, they get really close.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they are totally focused on winning, and already now, even with the same powertrain, there is a lot of only after 5 races, there is so much data and so much learning the teams are getting, and they don't share absolutely anything. And they, particularly on energy recovery, we thought we were going to recover about 10 to 11% of the energy. We're recovering close to 20% of the energy in braking. And yeah, they don't share anything at all. So yeah, and they will never do.
Are they good at innovating themselves in this space?
Well, they are very good, yes. So they, you know, we know that some of the OEMs are behind some of them, like kind of hiding, and they will kind of eventually emerge. That is where the real innovation is going to come from, because some of them, some smaller teams do some innovation, but is limited. I think really the name of the game here is going to be when, you know, companies like, you know, I'm just going to give you examples, doesn't mean that it's them, could be them. But, you know, Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, Honda, these kind of companies are the ones that, you know, come behind the team, and then they devote the resources. But even them, we're talking a lot to them, they like our system of kind of like common sense in terms of spending. Now is not the time anymore of big companies spending $200, $300, $400, $500 million every year in a racing program. If they spend 10, 15, 20, 25 million, it's okay.
Before we get to the car, I want to ask you one more question along these lines. People also may not know that hybrid technology has existed in Formula One for some time now. Can you talk about how that has worked and how it's informed Formula E, if it has at all?
Yep. So when we started the championship, we had a minor problem, is that there were no cars. They didn't exist, which is kind of tricky when you want to do a car race. But so we had to look for technology to build those cars. The key of our project was that we would, as promoter of the championship, design, basically commission somebody to design and produce those cars. We would buy them, all 40 cars, and then we would give them to the teams. So we were sure that the grid was going to be full of cars on race 1. So we looked for that technology all over the world, and we found it in Formula One. So Formula One is still the place where the highest motorsport technology exists.
That's so surprising. I was shocked when I learned that.
Formula E is a child of Formula One in terms of technology, because racing batteries and racing electric motors and so on are different from normal batteries. You know, the battery of a Tesla is fantastic and it goes really far, but you couldn't discharge that battery fast enough to power a racing car. It would probably catch fire, which is not very good. So we had to go to the racing experts in terms of engineering and technology to find the technology to our cars, and that was in Formula One. So particular merit to Williams, to Sir Frank Williams, who is one of the, you know, he's the royalty of Formula One, really, for his vision. And he's a man, he's 80 years old, but he really said, listen, I believe in Formula E, I think this is the future, and he put Williams to do the battery, and our battery, and particularly for those of you who are engineers, the cooling of these batteries is an extremely challenging problem to solve, and they were able to do that in a very, very short period of time, which shows also the power of these Formula One teams as an engineering, you know, force.
So let's get to the cars now. You've whetted our appetite really well. We're here in the auditorium. We're going to look at a couple of slides. We've got the first slide. This is the side view of this amazing looking car. Absolutely wonderful. How much does a car cost for a team to develop?
Well, we developed it, so there is a cost of development of the car that, you know, is probably like $10 million, and then every car costs $500,000.
Okay.
So if you want to buy one, I can even probably give you a discount of like 5%.
Now the chassis, which is quite beautiful, thank you. That's better than starting a soccer team, I think. The chassis is made by Dallara, which anybody who knows racing is a very famous racing name.
Yes, Dallara is the one that makes, for example, IndyCar, and they have done also Formula One. So we went to them, and we needed first of all, it was a decision of how the car would look like. And this car looks like a racing car. That was difficult. You have also the NASCAR style car. So we could have done either or. And we chose this one because what we want with this is for people to dream, to kind of, especially for kids, to see these cars as really as racing cars. So they see this and they identify electric with cool and fast and fun and kind of change their perception. So we went to that, and then we went to Dallara, and Dallara was the one that designed this car, which was not easy because all the weight, and when we talk about the battery, we'll see that, is much more to the back. So it has a lot of design challenges, but they managed to do this beautiful car, yeah.
And what was the challenge, the design challenge, just from the shape and the aerodynamics and everything else that was unique to this?
Well, the main challenge for us was we had a lot of debate about the battery and using two cars. And this was also the other key element of our decision-making on when we approached this project was these batteries basically lasts for half an hour. You could have batteries that last for an hour, but they would be twice as big. That seems difficult math, but
yeah.
And you can go 4 times, and there's 4, and so on.
Four times bigger. I think we have it. Yeah.
Did you get it?
I got it. Good. Yeah.
So there is a trade-off there between speed and the size of the battery. So we were actually faced with a dilemma. What do we do? Because we wanted the race to last 1 hour. We didn't want the race to last 1 hour, 50 minutes, or half an hour, or 45. We wanted the race to last 1 hour. So what anybody with common sense would have proposed is to swap the batteries.
Yes.
Which we tried, but we couldn't, because the FIA, the federation, has very strict safety criteria. So the battery is totally encapsulated. It's part of the chassis, and it's inside, and basically to bring it out takes about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. So the pit stop would have been a bit long. So
as you're talking about this, John, why don't we go to the next slide so everybody can begin to see where everything is located. So the battery pack that you're talking about is right behind the driver.
Yeah, right behind the driver. Yeah, below that number 5.
Right.
Is right there. So the decision we took, which was kind of a radical one, was to say, okay, if we cannot swap the battery, we give 2 cars to every driver. So they do the first stint, then they swap car, they go to their next car, and they continue the race, and the race will last 1 hour. And we get a lot of critics because of that. We go, oh, this is, what is this, changing cars and so on. But if you look at history, in the 50s, in Formula One, they used to change cars. Not exactly like us, so not everyone had 2 cars. It was even a bit more extreme. The best driver of the team had the right to take his partner's car. If his car overheated or really.
Yeah.
So Fangio, for example, won races with 2 cars. So his car broke down, and he took his teammate car and finished the race. So we're really going back to the beginning. I mean, Formula E really is at the beginning of electric racing, like Formula One was at the beginning 60 or 70 years ago. Mm-hmm. We're starting a journey, and everything is new, and we have to experiment and take like radical decisions to basically reach the objective. And changing cars is definitely one of them.
So since we're kind of into statistics and numbers here at the Computer History Museum, let me just mention that the power pack is a 772-pound cube containing 164 lithium-ion batteries. This is the Williams design. That's 772 pounds. By contrast, the motor is cylindrical and weighs 57 pounds.
Yes. It's very small.
Yeah. And is there something about this configuration of batteries that really made this optimum? I know you've talked about the time limitation, and you had to balance all of these various factors. Was there ever a temptation to do something that would make them run for, say, 40 minutes and just call it a 40-minute race? Or
there is the temptation, yes. So we have some of the car manufacturers don't like this concept of changing cars. So they would much rather have a larger car that goes slower and just lasts for an hour. And there was a lot of debate around that, and we decided to go for this because we as I said, we come from the racing world, and the racers like to go fast.
Yeah.
And this car is fun and gives a great show, and you need to have a good show to convince people that electric cars are cool. If they look really slow, then we just do the opposite that we want to achieve.
Yeah.
So that was the compromise. So this car is fast enough. As you saw in the video, the races are really exciting, and the people it's really nice to see a race like this. But still, they last for half an hour.
And it goes 0 to 60 in
3 seconds.
3 seconds. And top speed is?
About 140 miles per hour, 145. Okay. They can go 160 miles, but we have to prepare it, like the wing and the tires and so on.
And I think the question I've been asked before this event, probably more than any other, you get it 1,000 times a day, I'm sure, is, do they make a sound?
They do make a sound. That was also another of the very important questions in the beginning, because everybody thought they were not going to make any sound.
You want the rumble, right, or something.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know if they were going to make a sound or not until we didn't see, went and saw the first prototype. And there's been a lot of discussion about the sound. So Bernie Ecclestone, who is the CEO of Formula One, said that this was a lawnmower contest.
A lawnmower contest.
Contest.
So is that a term of endearment, or is that was that something else?
Well, I don't know. He also said something about a hairdryer or something. But it was very interesting. I mean, there is a sound, and I invite all of you to come to Long Beach in a couple of weeks to listen to it. But for me, it was really, really fantastic. A few weeks ago, we went to race in Buenos Aires. And Argentina is a country, it's a country of Fangio, it's a country with great motorsport, combustion motorsport tradition. So the Argentinians were very skeptical about our race. But a lot of public came to the race. It was sold out and it was packed with people, the park where we raced in the center of Buenos Aires. And the headline of the main newspaper of Argentina the next day was, "The race beat the silence." Because the races with these cars are so good for people who like racing that they didn't really care about the absence of noise, which is not true. There is noise. The level of noise is around 80 decibels. The level of an IndyCar or Formula One race would be in the region of 125, 130 decibels. But 80 decibels is the level of a sports car or, I don't know, or a bus.
Yeah, it's not quiet.
It's not quiet, no. And we think actually that the sound is really very futuristic. I think the sound is one of the best things that we have in the championship, and I think it's going to be a very, very unique feature of our championship. Of course, when they go really slow, like when they're in the pits, they don't make sound, but nothing has happened so far. Everybody's kind of looking behind.
And what kind of control system does the driver see and use inside the cockpit?
So the drivers have a dash, and they see their energy level, obviously, which is the most important thing they need to manage. Actually, the key of the race is not the fastest driver who wins, and we are seeing that because there are really some guys that are really, really fast, but they're not winning. Is the most clever guy and the one who knows how to manage the energy, the recovery of energy, and when to attack, when to wait, and so on. So the energy level obviously is very important, and then they have the drivers have 6 maps. So there is an electronic control unit that basically regulates the flow of power of energy out of the battery to the motor, and they can do these 6 maps. They go from map 1 to map 6. Map 6 is the most aggressive one. So when they really want to push, they go to map 6. When they want to save energy, they go to map 1, and then in between you do the different strategies. They wouldn't finish the race all the time on map 6. So you need to know when to go, so there is a lot of strategy, a lot of tactics in these races.
So the drivers are tweaking that themselves on the fly.
Yeah, all the time. They're changing map all the time to basically do their own strategy.
And are this is so sophisticated, are the pit crews and the team managers, are they getting all this data simultaneously from the car?
We limit a lot the data they get live, because we want to avoid, as I said before, engineers, sky's the limit for them, which is a good thing. But if we let all this information go back, you would have probably 100 engineers in front of 100 screens, each one of them controlling one different element, and then the cost would be very high.
Yeah, yeah.
So we want to keep the cost down, so we limit the amount of live telemetry, so they're all the time. For example, teams cannot see the exact level of battery left on the driver.
Oh, they can't?
No, they cannot. So they're all the time asking on the radio. Battery level, and then the guy is like 67%, slow down, and you know, so it's like a whole, yeah. So we keep them a little bit in the blind. We actually give the same telemetry to the public in our app than to the teams.
Yeah.
We want the public to have the same level of information as the teams, as the you know, the pit crew.
Now the tires, on the other hand, which we're very accustomed to seeing multiple changes of during a race, don't get changed at all, do they?
They don't. So this championship, we haven't actually, in our conversation, touched a lot in the sustainability aspect of the championship, which is really key for us.
Right.
One of these elements is the tires. We want tires, I mean, I want tires, and I asked Michelin to produce tires, and I think maybe for next year they will do it, who will last the whole season, not the whole race. I want the whole year with the same tire.
Wow.
Because it means you will not waste rubber, less energy to make those tires, et cetera, et cetera. It's endless, the reason, you know. And the reason why Michelin and also other companies also bid to be the official supplier of tires is that now all the tire companies are looking for more fuel-efficient tires or electricity-efficient tires, less rolling resistance, you know, more longevity, so basically green tires. And we are the perfect championship to showcase those green tires.
Absolutely. You've got a unique charging system, too. Talk a little bit about how these cars get recharged.
Yes. So, we are working on the downstream. Here is always the question of, you know, electric cars. You know, many people will come and, like, you know, talk like this, and then they will raise their hand and say, yeah, but electric cars pollute more than combustion cars. And then, you know, of course, there is all this debate on how the electricity is produced and so on. And, you know, and they have a point. You know, if you produce electricity from coal, and then you charge your electric car with that, you're polluting also. So, but anyway, we do motorsport. We just take care of what we take care. Someone else needs to take care of the energy production in the world, which is a really big challenge. And I think, obviously, we prefer sustainable sources, and I think solar is definitely the way. But we couldn't produce solar energy for the race for our cars because it would take too long or too many like square miles of solar panels to charge the cars in the short period of time we do it. So we look for other alternatives to charge these cars, because what we really cannot do is charge them from electricity produced by coal, just for the consistency of the message of the championship. So we found this startup in Greenwich, near London, that produces electricity with a generator with glycerin from sea algae. Which, yeah, I didn't believe it either in the beginning. But they do. I mean, I haven't seen it produced from the sea algae yet, but that's what they say. But it's definitely glycerin, and it's definitely no emissions. So we have those generators that we ship around the world. We don't fly them, we ship them, so we have two to avoid also the extra CO2 print from the flights. Those are the generators that produce the electricity for the car, so the electricity is clean. So we will have one of those in Long Beach for the race there.
And the cars recharge on a mat? Is it a mat system that the cars are recharging on, or is there another type of system?
They do, not the race cars yet. We will implement that on the race cars, but Qualcomm has developed this system of wireless charging. So our safety car, our pace car, our medical car are wirelessly charged.
Wireless charging.
Yes, so you just kind of like put the car on top of the pad, and which is good, especially for the safety car and the medical car, because if there is an accident, they need to go fast. So if you have the plug-in cable there, you need to get off the car and unplug the car. If you are charging wirelessly, you can just start. It's a really cool technology, and I think the future is also the race cars will do that. But the future is even more exciting, because that wireless pads, you could put them on the red lights in the cities. So when you stop with your car on a red light, your car recharges. You could put them on the parking on the side of the streets. So when you park, your car recharges and you don't need to get off and plug the car. And eventually, you could do dynamic wireless charging, and you could put the pads all over the street, and your car would recharge as it goes. So we think that's a really exciting technology, and this is really what we want, and we're very happy that we're doing this. We're showing this new technology in Formula E. We would like Formula E to be like the place where all these new technologies are being are being showcased, and wireless charging is definitely one of them.
Well, and the reason I wanted to start with the teams, which is what we did, is you were saying something to me that I think is really important, which is that the big brand consumer car companies who've been interested in Formula One for a long time, BMW, Mercedes, Renault, of course, is already involved, and others, are now really getting interested in coming into this circuit because they want to try to develop that kind of technology for their consumer line. Can you talk a little bit more about how they're thinking about it and what they're doing?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, I think it's through competition how they can improve the technology, and then that technology trickles down to the road cars. Really, the key one here is batteries. I mean, it's quite obvious to say, but the electric cars are still limited by the batteries, both in performance and also in price. And I think to have a platform like Formula E, where OEMs come together, compete against each other, and improve battery technology, is really relevant because that's, like I was saying in the beginning, it's only by making these cars the obvious choice, the most practical choice, that they will become mainstream, and at one point we will achieve the goal that we would like to achieve, which is that every single car in the world is electric. But for that you need definitely better technology, and you will get it through competition.
So when that lid is taken off a bit next year and you allow teams to start innovating technologically, where in that system we were looking at a minute ago do you think the most innovation is going to occur soonest?
Well, we know because we only allow them to do certain things per year.
Okay.
So the second season, we're focusing only on energy regeneration. So and energy regeneration is very linked to the braking system. So it's through braking. So we allow freedom on the brakes, and we allow freedom on the motor, because the motor is the part that recovers the energy. And that's for year 2. Year 3 and year 4, we will allow the improvements in motor and regeneration, and then we will also open up batteries. We do limit the amount of kilowatt hours in the battery. So right now they're limited to 32, and we only use 28, because batteries is like with your mobile phone. Some batteries behave better than others, and we need everybody to have the same energy on the race. So if a battery is 32 but is a little bit, has some problem and it's down to 31 or 30 and a half, as you can only use 28, everybody's able to use always 28. We're going to raise that level to probably 36 or 38 kilowatt hour on season 3. And we will raise that level even more on season 5. Season 5 is the season when we want to go from 2 cars to 1 car without sacrificing the performance. So it's a huge challenge to double the capacity of these cars in terms of performance in 5 years.
You see the top speed increasing significantly?
Well, yes. The top speed is, we could go as fast as Formula One today, but for 10 minutes. Yeah. So,
right. Yeah.
So the key is to kind of, again, balance the performance. So what we want to do is to increase slowly. What will happen is what will happen is that the cars will go faster, because they will still go for half an hour, but they will have more energy in the battery. So they will go faster. And then on year 5, they will go back to the performance of this year, but 1 car instead of 2 cars.
Have the teams adjusted to this 2-car strategy? This is really unconventional, although, as you said, it's not unheard of. How are they responding to this, and how are the fans responding to it?
Actually, that was one of the big question marks in the beginning, what was going to happen. And the teams have adapted really well to it. Some try to be too clever. Richard Branson was in the race, as I said, in Miami, and Sam Bird, one of his drivers, thought he was going to be able to last 1 more lap. So everybody came in and changed car, and he stayed on, and then he saw he wasn't going to last. So he had to really slow down to get back to the pits, and then everybody passed him, so he was probably going to win the race, and he didn't. And his boss was there, so it wasn't a very good day for him.
He's like the rest of us, right? Range anxiety. Exactly. We're going to look at a little footage now of the Miami race, and that's going to give us a chance to talk both about the drivers and the racing day experience.
The first ever Miami ePrix took place on the 14th of March 2015, and what a race it turned out to be around the streets of downtown Miami, around the American Airlines Arena, and and it was Jean-Eric Vergne for the Andretti team, the American team that was starting on pole position. The Stars and Stripes were flown in before the race got underway. The EJ was there as ever, but the man on pole position was Jean-Eric Vergne. The fan boosts were announced, and Salvador Duran won the fan boost, as did Jean-Eric Vergne and Bruno Senna, so Vergne would have an extra 30 kilowatts of power to play with. When the lights went out, Vergne made a good start. Sam Bird made an excellent start, trying to get to the inside of Nico Prost on the run down towards the first corner. Daniel Abt made it 3 wide for second place. As they arrived at turn 1 though, you'll see here, Jean-Eric Vergne, the lead car, gets hit from behind by Nico Prost and almost ends up in the wall. Vergne just about managed to keep it all together in a very, very tight first corner. After that, it was side by side for second position, with Sam Bird in the end taking the second place away from Nico Prost. The battle was now on for the lead of the race. Jean-Eric Vergne under big pressure from Sam Bird behind. Bird was pushing hard, desperate to try and get past the Andretti car. He had a look on a number of occasions. Meanwhile, the battles were going on as Sebastian Buemi made his way past Tony Oliuzzi. And Loic Duval was on a charge of well. He was the next man to make his way past Liuzzi, coming down into the right-hander. Duval in his first start in Formula E, but meanwhile Bird was still attacking Jean-Eric Vergne. He couldn't get through there, but then coming down towards the left-hander of turn 5, he managed to force his way to the inside and force his way through into the lead of the race. But he was so busy overtaking Vergne, he didn't come into the pits in time. Vergne pitted, but Sam Bird was limping around on the circuit, having run out of usable energy. He was cruising around just to get back to the pit lane, which cost him the race win. Bird switched into his second car, but he couldn't rescue a good result. Daniel Abt came into the pits, and he would be the man leading the race at the end of the pit stop window, having nailed the minimum pit stop time ahead of Nico Prost and Lucas di Grassi in third. The American fans were desperate to see Scott Speed make up some places, and he duly obliged, moving past Lucas di Grassi and up into third place. Di Grassi's teammate would then lose out to Nico Prost as the Frenchman looked to the inside coming into turn 8 to take the lead of the race with just a couple of laps to go. Scott Speed followed through, up the inside into turn 1 to take second position away and set up a final lap duel with Nico Prost. But across the line came the Edam's car to take the checkered flag and to win the race in Miami.
Really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who are the drivers everybody's watching right now? I don't want to get you in any trouble by having you call out some and not others, but who are the exciting drivers on the circuit?
So we've been very lucky to get all these drivers, all this talent. We have on one side very big names of motorsport. We have 3 names which are part of the history of motorsport, which are Prost, Senna, and Piquet. So 3 world champions of Formula 1. So we have the second generation, which is actually quite symbolic because it's the future. And it's not they're there because they're the sons of their fathers. They are there because they're really good drivers. I mean, you know, Nelson Piquet and Bruno Senna did race in Formula 1. Nico Prost has been racing in Le Mans for a long time. So they're really good drivers. And then we have other guys like Nick Heidfeld, Jarno Trulli, who've been in Formula 1 for a long time. We have drivers like Sam Bird, who is a fantastic driver from the UK. We have guys like Scott Speed, a US driver. He came in Miami for the first time and he was second. Amazing race. So we have a really good mix of drivers that really make a big show. This championship is very complicated for drivers. And drivers like to race with good drivers. I think we've been able to attract the best talent probably in the world apart from Formula 1. Now, this is probably the strongest breed of drivers apart from Formula 1.
Does this racing reward a different set of skills from the kind of skills that get rewarded in Formula 1?
It does. I mean, you need to have the normal skills of a really good driver, but then you need to be really clever on your management of the energy. And you can see that drivers that come from racing in Le Mans, hybrid cars, have that edge, but the others immediately catch it. So no, I think you need to be, you have that element of strategy that you need to have in mind. Yeah.
So if we have some young people wondering what to do with their electrical engineering degree tonight, they've got a whole new career path here, which is driving in Formula E and power management behind the wheel. Is that part of the?
Well, not really. I mean, none of our drivers is an engineer. I mean, they have a career in Formula E behind the technology, which because I think Formula E is really going to be at the frontier of technology in electric cars. So, and it's some great engineering challenges are within Formula E. If they want to be drivers, they need to start like karting when they're like about 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ladder for talent in driving certainly exists in the more established circuits. Will there be a ladder for Formula E, and will Formula E drivers move on to Formula One?
That's a very interesting question. Since the beginning, we've been talking about the ladder, and the truth is there is a ladder to Formula One. So there are different categories. You start in karting, and then you go Formula 3, or you do Formula 4, or different categories. You go then you go to GP2, which are cars which performance. Every time you take a step up the ladder, the performance of the car gets you closer to the performance of a Formula 1. And then GP2 is probably the closest one in performance to a Formula 1 or an Indy car, which is also a very, very high performance car. And then you get to that. We are not part of that ladder because the performance and the way of driving these cars is totally different from Formula 1. So the ladder is basically a pyramid, and Formula 1 is in the top, and then you have the other categories. And we are in the top of our pyramid. We're actually alone right now at the top of the pyramid. But not so alone, because there is electric karting, which I was discussing before. And there will be other categories under that will be full electric. It's very interesting because for drivers, we are not a step to the ladder to Formula 1, but we're probably a step after Formula 1. And it doesn't necessarily mean a driver is retired or has to be old to come to Formula E. Formula 1 is actually getting rid of a lot of really, really good drivers for budget reasons. Many drivers pay to race in Formula 1, and some drivers who don't have the sponsorship or the possibility to pay for a drive, and they pay 10, 15, 20 million euros a year, they cannot continue racing, and they are really, really high quality drivers. Those drivers are coming to Formula E. I mean, maybe I'm being too negative about Formula 1. I'm a big Formula 1 lover. I don't want to give the wrong impression. But
So let's talk a bit about the fan experience, and then we'll get to some audience questions, because you're doing, just like you're innovating and being creative in so many other areas, you're doing it for the fans as well. First of all, let's just talk about your decision to hold these races in city centers, which is really brave for any type of racing. What's your thinking, and how's that strategy working out?
For us, one of the cornerstones of the championship was that we were going to be electric, and the other one was that we were going to race on city centers. We think it's very important that to bring the race to the people where they are. We think that motorsport is losing the younger generation of fans, and we think by bringing the race to the fans, we have a better chance to get back those fans. And really the demonstration was Miami last week, because we were totally sold out, big crowds, a lot of young kids, which is what we want to have in the US. And in the US, international racing championships or series don't succeed. They just don't. The US has its own racing, which is very successful, NASCAR and IndyCar. And basically, even for Formula 1, it's been difficult to succeed in the US. So for us to have that first event in the US and to have that fantastic result was really good, because we were in the center of the city. Of course, being in the center of the city creates a big challenge for us, especially because we went, again, a little bit unconscious in the beginning with the idea to do 10 races. So we're actually doing one race every month in a new city center. And it's really difficult because, the first one was in Beijing, and, I don't know if you have experience working in Beijing, but it's a little bit challenging. They always tell you yes, but they haven't understood anything.
Yes.
So we delivered that race, then we went to Malaysia, then we went to Buenos Aires, Uruguay, and everywhere is different. You need to bring the cars through customs, you need to, put all the infrastructure, the electricity, the charging, the walls, the fences, the protections, the whole setup. And our event takes place in one day, because we don't want to block the city for too long, because then traffic becomes chaos and everybody hates you in the city. So we want to be also a positive kind of welcome in the city. So it's a one-day event. So it's a big challenge to put together, but the result is fantastic. So we think we're in the right track. And also, it brings the message that the electric car is the solution for mobility in the cities now. So we're showing this car in the city centers to give that message.
You did something really ingenious in Beijing. You auctioned a car, you said.
Yeah. We auction a car. I mean, the car down there that you've seen, it's empty inside. It's a show car.
No engine, no battery.
No engine, no battery, etc. So we auctioned one of those in China. But the guy who bought it thought it was a real car. So,
and then when you told him, he said, no, I want to keep the car, right? You said,
so the guy said, no, it's not a real car. You've cheated me or something. I said, no, we haven't. I mean, we told you it was a show car, but in Chinese you didn't understand or whatever. And then we said, don't worry, you don't have to buy it. It was an auction, but it's fine. You don't have to buy it. And then they said, no, I want it anyway. So, okay, so
I love that. That's a real fan.
Yeah.
We heard when we watched the footage of the Miami race, there was something said at the beginning, and I don't know if everybody caught up to it, but there's a way for you to involve fans so that they can actually increase the power on board, or is it the power consumption of the car? At any rate, it's called a fan boost. And I just think this is a fantastic experience. Can you talk about that?
Yes, the fan boost was an idea we had. Of course, we wanted to focus the championship on the younger generation, and the younger generation is totally now focused on mobile. They enjoy entertainment through basically different channels, basically through their mobile devices. So we wanted to incorporate them to the race, and we came up with this idea of fan boost, which working with electric cars allows you for that. Which basically the way it works is people vote, the fans vote online, and through Facebook and through any other, and the 3 drivers who get more votes get an extra amount of energy during 5 seconds during the race. Twice, once per car. And they have this little pad, and they can use it whenever they want. So it's really cool for those who win it, which are usually the same ones, the most popular ones or whatever. But it's fine, because you give actually a real interaction between the fans and the sport. It's actually the first time in history that fans can have an influence on the result of a sport. Because you cannot score a goal in football through social media or score a point in tennis or anything like that.
Yeah.
But actually, if you're running second and your guy has a fan boost and he overtakes the first, he will win the race thanks to the fans. Which is actually what should have happened in Punta del Este, where Jean-Éric Vergne was running second on the last lap and he had the fan boost, and he was going to overtake the guy running first, but he used it too early and he didn't make it, and we were all very upset. Yeah, but it will come. The day will come that the fans will win a competition, which is what we want. FIA was not so happy with that because they say it's not so sportive. They told us, yeah, but like this, the fans will alter the result of the race, and we said exactly.
That's the point.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to convince them to let us, because right now you have to stop voting 10 minutes before the start of the race. And then we announce 5 minutes before the start of the race who the winners are. We want to convince the federation to let us continue the vote during, for example, the first 10 minutes of the race, so you can influence the actual race as it happens, which is much more fun.
Yeah.
We haven't got the permission yet, but we're working on it.
Now, you're doing something else which we do see in other sports, which is biometrics of drivers. You've got lots of sensors on these drivers recording a lot of biometric information and reporting it out in real time. And is that available to every fan who's got a device who can read it?
So not yet. We're testing that. So we think now the more information you give to the fans, the better.
And that's really the principle.
That's the principle. So to give as much information as possible. So basically we're going to give everything available in terms of like battery level and everything like technical. Sorry. But we want to go beyond. So we're testing now all these sensors on the drivers to give the heartbeat and the stress level. I don't know how they calculate that, but anyway, like a bunch of things that you can look on your app, and you can see how your favorite driver is basically feeling during the race.
We're going to get to some audience questions now, and we've got some really wonderful questions here. I'm going to try to get to as many of these as possible. In your vision, when will electric cars exceed the energy density and range of petrol-based cars?
Well, I arrived here today a bit early, and I was with John and Carol, and very kindly they showed me around the museum. And it made me feel really optimistic. This is a place that really makes you feel so optimistic. Because you see that Cray computer, and you see my mobile phone, And my mobile phone is like 1,000 times more powerful than that great computer. And that great computer was there, what, 50 years ago?
Yeah, almost.
Means that, you know, the breakthrough will happen. I mean, it has to happen. It's impossible that it doesn't happen. And when that happens, our phone, we will only have to charge it once a month or once a year. And our car, electric car, will go for 2,000 miles. You know, and that will eventually happen. The answer to your question is I don't know when it will happen, but I'm very optimistic. We are on the right side of the science and the technology. And it's basically a chemistry problem. And, you know, computers are the way they are today because somebody came with a clever idea to solve the chemistry problem of how to do the microprocessors or chips or, you know, how to, you know, make it very, very small. That's right. So at some point, someone will break the chemistry challenge of batteries and they will store the energy that we need. So, and then, you know, the Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones. So.
Very well said. Do you foresee a day when these Formula E cars compete directly in a race against a Formula One car?
Yes. I think, again, it will depend on technology. And I think how cool would it be that combustion and electric would race against each other? I don't know if Bernie will be very happy with that. Bernie Ecclestone is the CEO of Formula One. I'm sure he will be still around because, you know, he's not thinking of, he's 84 and he's not thinking of retiring. But I do see that, yeah, definitely. I think technology will make that possible. And then at some point combustion will just give way to electric.
There's a technical question here we didn't discuss when we were talking about the specs of the car, which is the transmission. Is it multi-speed? Does the driver shift manually? What's that process like?
There is a transmission. There is a 7-gear gearbox. Well, I thought it was 6 gears, but I drove the car for the first time on Tuesday and it had 7. So that's why I say 7. So yes, there is a question if we need one or not. So we had a gearbox on the first car. I know that some of the projects for next year don't have a gearbox, and that will have advantages and disadvantages. But in these cars, yes, they do.
Here are a couple of Silicon Valley-oriented questions. At that dinner in Paris where the Formula E idea was born, did you write the plan on a napkin?
I did. I mean, that someone has inside information. I did.
Did you really?
Yeah.
You're our kind of guy.
I did. Yeah, and I have lost it.
Oh, no.
I'm probably gonna do a new one. Say it's that one.
Well, there's a certain museum that might be really interested in having that if you recreate it. So, and here's another one: is Elon Musk and Tesla, are they interested in forming a Formula E team?
So they're not. I had the chance to meet with Elon Musk, who I think is cannot admire anyone more than Elon Musk. I think it's incredible what he's done. And I wanted to convince him to join Formula E. His answer was very, very kind of straight. He says, I want to focus on my road cars. You know, I have a lot of work to do on this, and I really want to focus on, I don't want to be seen like going racing. So we actually then started talking about the Model S being the pace car for Formula E, which is something that I would have liked very much, and I think also him. I had a really good offer from BMW, so it's the BMW now, but I really, you know, we have the Tesla Club now in Long Beach, with a lot of Teslas, and I think it's an amazing car, and I think it's an amazing company, and I really would like them to come into Formula E, so I don't give up. I actually today sent an email to him, inviting him to the Long Beach race. Let's see if I can convince him. But for the moment, he's very focused. I mean, I think he's just a very focused man. So he has his objectives, and his objectives are creating the best electric cars for the road, and you know, and I don't think he's too much into racing yet, but you know, I don't give up.
Here's another great question. Do you think we'll see a race in San Francisco?
We are talking to some people in San Francisco to have a race in San Francisco. We would love to have a race in San Francisco. And there is actually, we do need a certain kind of space. We have some space criteria because we need to put the paddock, and it's kind of a big area and so on. But San Francisco, after the America's Cup, has spaces where we could race. So we would really like to race in San Francisco. We have over 180 cities around the world who have requested to have a race now, which is really fantastic. But they're not like San Francisco.
That reminds me, we do have a schedule. John, if you want to show the schedule of the upcoming races and where they are around the world. So the season kicked off there in Miami, and you mentioned Long Beach, which is happening on the 4th of April. Do you want to talk about some of the other race locations and
yes,
the excitement of that and where they're shaping up?
So Long Beach is the next one, and you're all welcome. And actually, Long Beach is a free admission race. We have 2 free admission races. One is Long Beach, the other one is Monaco. The reason for this free admission is to promote families to come. So we want as many kids there as possible, because the message really is to promote. I mean, what we would like is that those kids, when they become 18 and they buy a car, the first car they buy, it's an electric car. So that's really why we promote so much kids to come to our races. After that, we go to Monaco. Monaco is, I mean, it's kind of a temple of motor racing with the Monaco Formula 1 Grand Prix. And we've been really lucky to be able to race in Monaco. It's not easy to race in Monaco, but Prince Albert of Monaco is a very, very big supporter of Formula E. He has been personally involved in us racing in Monaco, and he has a foundation that deals with a lot of problems around sustainability. He's a very, very, motivated in that direction. So Monaco is the next one. Then we go to, and we will race in part of the Formula 1 racetrack in Monaco. Then we go to Berlin, and in Berlin we're going to race in the city center. We're going to race in a very spectacular place, because there is this airport in Berlin, which is now closed, which is the airport where the airlift took place. So when Berlin was blocked,
yes,
was a blockade, the Americans, you win this one.
All right, you got soccer, we got that one.
Basically, exactly. They saved Berlin by setting up this air lift that brought supplies to Berlin and so on and so on. And the place where that happened was Tempelhof Airport, which is actually a great symbol of freedom and that all that happening there. We're going to race on that airport in Berlin, which is amazing. Then we will race in Moscow, so a bit of a contrast. So we will race on the Red Square next to the Kremlin. Really cool race.
Truly a contrast.
Truly a contrast. Yes, but nice.
That's nice.
This is a sport. So.
Yes, absolutely.
And then London. For decades, there has not been a race. I mean, there's never been a race so close to the heart of London. We're going to race in Battersea Park. And Battersea Park is a park that is really, next to the river, across from Chelsea. And basically, it's a park that was designed over 200 years ago. And the guy who designed it did a carriageway. At that time, they would go with their horses to kind of like hang out and go around the park. And it's basically the perfect racing track. We don't need to do, we're just doing marginal changes. And we have a racetrack in the heart of London. So those are the races coming up.
And in each of these cities, you're doing a lot of pre-race activity. You've got educational programs. You're doing a lot of things to help people understand how these cars work, that you're on the vanguard of this conversion to sustainability.
Yes, we have what we call the Formula E Legacy program,
right,
which is different activities around the race to contribute to the implementation of electric cars and to the education effort and the change of perception of electric cars. One of the things we do, which is really cool, is we have these little cars, these kits that we send to the schools in the cities where we race. And then the kids assemble those cars, those little electric cars, and that school comes to the race. We invite the kids from the school, and one kid gets to drive the car. Basically, it's a race of kids with 10 little cars, and they race before the real race. And that's really successful. The kids love it, and everyone loves it, really. And it's really promoting this educational part to show the kids that electric cars are the future.
One last question from the audience, and then I've got the very final question. You really seem to love speed. This is on the card. Have you raced yourself?
Unfortunately not. So I love speed, it's true. But the first time I drove ever in my life a single-seater was last Tuesday in Miami.
How was it?
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, I almost crashed. Which would have been it wouldn't have been a good thing. But it was really, really super exciting. I've been racing as a team owner, and it's really the part I enjoy more. To organize the championship is a fantastic experience, and it's great because this project is being so fantastic, but I would have much more fun if I was one of the team owners. Yeah.
So my last question is, Silicon Valley may be able to make a contribution to all of this in some way. If Silicon Valley could make one contribution that could really help Formula E in some way, what would it be?
Well, I think what Silicon Valley should do is to invent the long-lasting forever battery. Easy, no? But I think this is the place to do it. I mean, Silicon Valley is really the place where all these great inventions happen and these new things, and really that is the next frontier in terms of the electric cars, and the contribution we need is someone who comes up with the battery. And I know that there's people here working on it. Elon Musk is doing his huge battery factory. Many other, incredibly clever people work here. So, if I may ask you, please, to do that, that would be really great for the world, actually. So I think that's the next contribution from Silicon Valley.
Well, if you could issue a challenge, that's a great one to close on. Alejandro Agag, Formula E Racing, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much.